Welcome back. We're discussing the results of Tuesday's primaries where Hillary Clinton ended Barack Obama's winning streak, taking the states of Texas, Ohio and Rhode Island. The results also clear the way for Republican candidate John McCain to secure his party's nomination. Joining me to continue our discussion on this hour from Austin, Texas, Gonzalo Barrientos, former Texas state senator and chair of the Tejano Democrats. Here in Washington, D.C., I'm joined by Ralph Hallow, a senior national correspondent at the Washington Times, and Jim Zogby, a Democratic superdelegate. Let's get back to the discussion with Senator Barrientos. And I have to get your comments on this idea of perhaps the split between the Democrats may leave them very wounded when coming up to face Senator McCain in the final stretch.
Well, let me be perfectly frank about this. I cannot speak for all the Democrats in America. I don't know who it was a while ago that spoke like they had a crystal ball and knew everything about everybody. Certainly in primaries especially, there are always going to be some differences of opinion. I am a Democrat. I will be a Democrat after the primaries, and we'll go from there. I shall not speak for all the Democrats in America. We, the Tejano Democrats in Texas, are going to continue working for Hillary Clinton because of her experience, and I'll take that experience any day in the White House over some grand words which are beautifully presented and some good ideas, but we're still going to be con la mera tejana, Hillary Clinton.
Well, Senator, I have to ask you, until the 1980s and Ronald Reagan, Texas was historically a very Democratic state. Now, what has the primary race done for Texas Democrats, and what chances is there a Democrat might win in Texas again anytime soon?
Well, I believe that these two particular candidates have excited the people, have energized the people, because by golly, we do need some things to be changed from the White House and the way we are viewed around the world. And I think that these good Democrats will come forward time and time again, the young people who are learning the process, and there were many, many of them, and still we go forward from here.
I have to ask Ralph Hallow, there's been much talk about Republicans staying at home in order to let the Democrats win so they can sort of stay back and then campaign against a Democrat as opposed to support a liberal Republican candidate as they might see it, or at least a weaker one. To what extent do conservatives fear John McCain in that respect, do you think?
Depends on the conservative. People identify themselves as conservatives to pollsters, and then the follow-up questions indicate that the respondent doesn't know what he's talking about. Obviously not a conservative. But there are conservatives who are deeply opposed to the Iraq War, for example. And many of those were opposed to the first Gulf War. Conservatives who take the view that America has no business engaging in foreign wars unless America is directly threatened. That it's in fact un-American and not our tradition. It's a form of neo-imperialism, they feel. And those conservatives are dead set against John McCain, but not just for that reason. John McCain, by the way, has some of the most militant supporters from the American Jewish community who are on the, let's say, the most pro-war supporters, very rich people. John McCain almost has a franchise on those supporters. But back to your question, how do conservatives really feel about, well, those who oppose the war and oppose what John McCain did on civil liberties in campaign finance regulations, for example, simply can't forgive him because they feel he doesn't understand what civil rights and civil liberties really are and how they can be threatened by things that, in the name of reform, that a man like McCain can do. Well,
of course, we had President George W. Bush just endorsing him, and this is a little bit of what President Bush had to say as he endorsed John McCain as the candidate he favors.
I have got to know John well in the last 8 years. I've campaigned against him, and I've campaigned with him. Laura and I have spent time in their house. It's a man who deeply loves his family. It's a man who cares a lot about the less fortunate among us. He's a president, and he's going to be the president, who will bring determination to defeat an enemy and a heart big enough to love those who hurt. And so I welcome you here. I wish you all the best. I'm proud to be your friend.
I was going to ask you, Jim Zogby, about this. To what extent what's this going to do? Where does George W. Bush fit into all this? Because a lot of people have said, distancing John McCain from Bush might be better.
Well, look, he's in trouble with about a third of the Republican Party, George Bush is. And I don't think he didn't have coattails in 2004, didn't have them certainly in 2006, doesn't have them right now. I think that this doesn't help John McCain close the gap he has with the conservative wing of his party. But I think John McCain still is a formidable opponent for anyone, even wounded as he is within his own party. He is the last representative of a generation that represents honor and dignity and shame and service to country. He's somebody who knows how to be ashamed. He knows what honor means, and I think that he knows duty to country. And when he speaks as a war hero, and it's going to be tough. And so I think that, and he also has an appeal to the center, which, while it alienates on the right, does create a problem for a Democrat who can't appeal to the center as well. So I think this is a guy who, on his own, without George Bush, is going to be a problem for a Democrat. He will not get the far right, but he may cause trouble by taking the center ground.
So where does this leave Barack Obama?
I think Barack Obama uniquely competes with John McCain because he also competes for the center. And I think that where Mrs. Clinton has a problem is she doesn't have the same appeal to the center, which is why in all the national polling that you do, Barack Obama beats John McCain, but Hillary Clinton loses to John McCain and almost every other Republican. That's a problem, I think, for the Democratic Party.
Let's bring in Senator Barrientos here and just ask about the fact that Senator Clinton may have been out-organized in Texas, that there was talk that her Houston office didn't even have telephones until a couple of weeks ago. And I wonder, to what extent was this a case of too little too late, or was there something else at work here, do you think?
I don't know if we had been out-organized. I know for sure we have been outspent a bunch of millions of dollars, and that you can hire a lot of people to stand around corners or knock on doors or make phone calls. Even though they spent that much more money, we still won the state of Texas. And while I'm at it, let me say this. Words like conservative and liberal are thrown around too loosely. What we Americans, we Tejanos, ought to be thinking about is common sense. What are the issues? What are their records? And the platforms they're running on. So let's get back on that, because we're really talking in the end about the United States of America. That's why I'm with Hillary Clinton.
Of course, it does take money, Ralph Hallow, and I wonder if John McCain can keep raising the money he needs to keep going.
Yeah, now he'll start raising the money. And it's going to be a very interesting election because, as you know, Riz, both candidates probably end up not taking public money for the general election. That means sky's the limit. Whatever they can raise, they can spend. And it'll be interesting to see. If it is Obama, by the way, the assumption at this table today is that it's going to be Obama. And my friend Jim, who is a brilliant man in so many ways, except politics,
Ouch.
somehow is wedded to the idea that Hillary bad, 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 and Obama good, good, good. And there's very little in the objective data.
I take criticism for Ralph Hallow as praise.
Okay. On that note, gentlemen, thank you very much for this debate, and we hope to get back to you all sometime soon and see where things go a little bit further down the road. Senator Barrientos, thank you very much for joining us as well. It's good to have you with us.
Adios.
Thank you. Well, again, we will revisit this at some point. Thank you for being with us. Now, on tomorrow's show, we speak with the Malaysian Prime Minister, Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, on the country's upcoming general election. Don't forget, if you have any thoughts about pressing issues around the world, send your emails to riz@aljazeera.net. We'll see you next time.